Lagos State Commissioner of Police, Olorundare Moshood Jimoh, on Friday defied the orders of the Federal High Court to withdraw police officers posted to the premises of oil and gas firm Nestoil Limited, following the vacation of an initial injunction to that effect. Joining us now to have a conversation around this development are Abimbola Atitebi, who is the General Counsel to Nestoil Limited, and Walter Bossman, the company's head of communications, with a view to understanding the broader implications and options before the firm. Good morning, gentlemen. Good to have you join us on the morning show. I believe that there is a bit of good news, isn't it, that Nestoil has now firmly taken possession of the office, and it looks like the Commissioner of Police in Lagos State, which we referenced in my opening, has now complied with the law. Maybe I should start with Mr. Bossman first, given that he's the head of comms. What actually happened, and what led to all the brouhaha? I read, on the cover of this day today that you are still compiling, the damage done to the premises. Where are we now? Is everything fully sorted?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for having us. Where we are now is we've, as you rightly mentioned, we have access to our building back last night. An ex parte order was given, without us even being at the hearing to start with, and which we're not really happy about. Mm-hmm. However, we complied because we're a corporate body, responsible corporate body. Now, the order to vacate was given, as of Thursday, this week. And we got to the office on Friday morning with the court bailiffs, and the police refused us entry. In fact, the court bailiffs was tear gas. A few members of our staff that were there were also harassed and tear gas as well. The funny part of this story was that the security agencies included the DSS, the police, and whatever. Immediately that order was given, to vacate, the DSS left. Mm. They left, but the police stayed. And of course, it took the intervention of the IGP last night, to get it back for us. So that's where we are. With regards to damages and losses, yes, we are still compiling. However, the reputational damage to our brand, of course, I won't call it irreparable, but it's firmly there, The whole process slowed down our production. Slowed down our production, massively, for both Nekonde and for NNPC as well, okay? We have over 1 million barrel of crude oil, that was delayed for shipping for 2 days. Yeah?
Over 1 million?
Yeah, over 1 million barrel of crude oil. Our office were defaced. They sprayed graffiti all over the building. They painted the cameras so that we would not see what they were doing. Yeah. They practically lived in our building. When we got there last night, there were mattresses, in the reception area. They were sleeping and eating and doing all sorts of things over there. So yes, there's so much going on, and yeah, but the damages are there. So we are compiling, with Abimbola and the legal team as well.
And so that brings the question to you, sir. As the legal counsel, what are the legal ramifications of this? Because when I think of Nestoil, it has already just such a commanding presence, the building itself visually. So to hear your accounts of spray painting and tear gassing of employees, all of that, legally, what are your options here?
Yeah, so I think the legal ramifications are quite extensive. To begin with, the premises that was, for want of a better description, seized, defaced, and damaged actually doesn't belong to Nestoil. Nestoil basically occupies that building, based on arrangements with the ownership.
Nestoil is a tenant in the building. Is that the arrangement?
I would use words carefully because there are legal implications. But Nestoil was a tenant in the building, and continue to occupy based on arrangements with the ownership. how that occupation goes forward, we don't know. We have to have conversations with the ownership who are completely mystified and upset about the development. Because as anybody who sees that tower and understands it, it's quite one of the most state-of-the-art buildings in this country. And the damages that were done to it, you can only imagine, with the spray painting, with turnstiles being destroyed. And it's a green building that has to be powered continuously. We're having those conversations with the owners to see where we stand, where the position is, what their position is, and then, we will look at how that goes forward. But generally, in terms of Nestoil, as our head of communications has said, we're compiling all the losses, all the damages, and, everything that has been impacted. One of the things that needed clarification and everyone needed to know was that the nature of the orders that were obtained in the first place were ex parte. Those orders, by their nature, are only preservatory until the parties are properly before the court. It doesn't give any final decision. It doesn't do anything. And I'm not going to go into what is before the court.
Yeah.
We respect that, and we're ventilating our grievances and making our defenses there. But the extent and use of those orders that were given by the courts can only just be imagined, as Mr. Bossman has mentioned, including delaying crude shipment that, impacted the National Oil Corporation, the NNPC Limited, including, we've had publications, in the newspaper in our name, in our brand, which we can only imagine someone just lifted up pictures off the internet and then slapped it on a letterhead and started making publications in our name. So there are a number of ramifications. Our external counsels are looking at it, and in due course, as the days go by, we will make those submissions to courts. We will make relevant submissions to authorities, and we will even make representations as to questions around what the orders were supposed to be, what they were used for, and when the orders were vacated, how these all issues were dealt with, including issues of tear gassing officers of the Federal High Court. I have never heard of it in my years. It's quite mystifying.
I mean, I'll stay with you just a bit, Mr. Atitebi, and I get the point that, some of these things might be sub judice because, it's a court matter. But then I'm wondering, at the very heart of this issue is an alleged $1 billion loan, isn't it? Are you indebted? Is Nestoil indebted?
Again, as I said, those matters are before the court. And I like the fact that you said it's alleged, right? But the question of the allegation of the debt, whether it exists or otherwise, is actually before the court. And the court will make a pronouncement on it. Now the parties are properly before the court, those matters will be properly articulated to the court. We have a team of lawyers representing the various defendants that have come into this case. And mind you, there are a slew of cases. This is just the first one where these sensational actions were taken. Again, perhaps on questions of damage to brand or otherwise, But whether or not there is a debt, which, to be clear, and as we have submitted to the court, Nestoil firmly denies, those issues would be completely determined by the court of competent jurisdiction.
DSS officers were part of those who... Is that normal? I know that ideally it's police officers, that will go to, implement, that sort of, order. But then DSS officers, I mean, was that a first or is it normal?
It's novel. I don't want to say it's first, but it's quite novel. And I don't want to speak for the other side. They know why they did what they did or what they put in the papers, right? But credit has to go to the Department of State Security. Okay. Because even though this would be quite unusual and bizarre, when they were in possession of a court order, they had to comply. When they came to our premises, when we got wind of the court order, we immediately complied. Executive management, legal counsel spoke to whether or not there was a court order. And the moment we knew there was a court order, we pulled out and complied. We didn't have any struggle with the law enforcement and whoever, and they came in. And as we're on the subject of the DSS, the moment the court vacated that order and they got the notification without even recourse to us, they pulled out of the premises. So, I mean, not to toot their own horn, but in this proceedings, they actually have been one of the stellar performers.
Okay. And, you know, bigger picture, reputationally, you kind of touched on the fact that it has done some damage to the firm's reputation. I guess, how do you see this progressing moving forward? I think oil and gas companies generally don't always have the best PR overall. So, you know, what's the company's approach to this, especially, you know, when people think about climate change? You mentioned the building is green, but how are you taking all of these factors to make sure that Nestoil maintains a positive image moving forward?
Nestoil is very resilient. It's a very resilient company. The leadership, the people. When this happened, of course, our operations were interrupted, you know, but we still carried on. You know, we were at the building at about 12 midnight last night to access the building and see the damages done there. And our people are already motivated anyway, you know. The brand will rise from this. We don't have a doubt about it at all. It's a responsible company. We apply everything that we do to the rule of law. And that itself is a plus, you know, because the rule of law will always prevail, even in Nigeria. And we believe that. Going forward, operations will resume properly. We've talked about the damages done to our reputation. We've talked about the compilation of these damages with our lawyers, and we can only look forward to the best. So for us, I think as of yesterday, we're not even thinking of, talking about this today. You know, we're talking about the effect of the harassment in the morning and the tear gassing. But everybody's happy. You know, we're looking forward to a great Christmas now. So, yeah.
Let me just touch on the question of PR for oil and gas companies. Just to be clear, the main company that explores and produces in this whole scenario is Nikonde Energy Limited. It's actually one of the foremost, most responsible indigenous E&P companies out there. Our relationship with our community is stellar. We have no such community issues. In terms of how we extract hydrocarbons is actually in line with international best practices. And one of the things that this whole situation could have impacted is how we safely and responsibly produce. There were attempts to go into the field, which could have caused immense environmental damages. There are even questions of a fire incident that occurred during the whole issue. I mean, the police and the fire service are looking into that. But care has to be taken when you deal with companies who extract these resources, because safety is an issue, the community is an issue, and for companies who are very, very careful and take time to make sure that these things are done properly, these sort of disruptions could impact those sorts of things. Again, he mentioned a delay in a crude shipment, keeping a ship laden with crude oil on the waters for what we would have thought would have been an indefinite amount of time. Those are those kind of impacts that we have to be careful with. And there's a drive by the government in Nigeria to boost investment in the oil and gas sector. This is not a good look.
Absolutely. That's you know, I mean, just very quickly before we let you go, that's actually the area that I was hoping that you would touch, you know, the damage, you know, the potential damage, not just to Nestoil, but to Nigeria's reputation at a time like this that, you know, we're looking for investment. And the role that police, you know, commissioner of police, his men, etc., that they play in things like this. What would be your word, you know, to the commissioner of police in Lagos State, you know, to his men at a time that Nigeria needs to protect those who are, you know, local investors and big companies are doing great things in Nigeria? Who goes first?
Yeah,
I think I'll leave that to you because I have to be very careful.
I mean, just to center that conversation around the Commissioner of Police, there, questions as to perhaps he needed to follow certain procedural actions and steps before, compliance. But our belief was that the vacation order is self-enforcing.
Okay.
So the order says go, and then the order says pull out. It's our firm belief that order was self-enforcing. I mean, with some notion to the Commissioner of Police, he's probably not a lawyer. He needs to run it through lawyers. Maybe that led to the delay. But to your question on the issue of how this plays out to investors, as a matter of fact, as it relates to Nekonde and the assets, they are international investors at play here, and everybody was watching. It sends a bad signal when high-ranking officials of the state, are working at counter purposes with the government at the center, and their executive orders as to the management of oil assets, their executive orders as to driving investment. When state actors take actions that look, like they are at cross purposes with those executive orders, it doesn't portray well for the government. And we in the private sector, the government, law enforcement, we all have to work together to drive up this investment and hit
the media too?
The media as well, the media as well, in terms of reportage and how all this plays out, to help together to achieve the same common purpose.
All right, Mr. Atitebi, Mr. Bossman, we want to thank you for joining us on the morning show, and we of course hope that this whole matter will be properly dealt with legally and whatever it takes. Thank you.
Thank you
so
very
much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.